Hi, everybody. It's me, Liz Josephsberg, with my dear friend Jay Jacobs, and we are here today live with Liz and Jay. Hi, Jay.
Hi there, Liz. Hi, everybody. Glad we can be here again and just kind of have some fun sharing what's new and what's going on with us and what's going on with everybody else.
Yeah, I love that you're out by the pool. Do you spend
Well,
a lot of time in the pool out there?
well, I thought today, you and I have talked about doing some things where we kind of mix things up a little bit. And instead of us always being in a room, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go out and just kind of broadcast here from where I was in California last week. And then I've had a hard time getting away from the sun. And then where I live, we have a pool. And as I told you, Liz, I was kind of like a lobster out in the pool, having some fun, getting some sun. And I thought that, I know one of the things we talked about is a lot of people are starting to come out from where they were.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious. So I know you guys have been up to a lot of stuff. What's going on in your world? What are you doing, Liz, in breaking out from being inside, being a mom, being with the boys?
Yeah.
What are you guys up to?
Wow, we are so busy all of a sudden. And I'm hearing this, from everyone right now is coming out of this pandemic. It does feel a little bit like the roaring 20s, right? Like I went
Hmm.
out to dinner with a couple this weekend outside for the first time in a year and a half. And we had a friend come over who I haven't gotten to see in a year and a half and meet her fiance and meet her dog. And she brought her dog and they hung out. We had a barbecue and then we had sports all weekend, right? Baseball
Hmm.
games, soccer games, double soccer games, right? So we were driving all over. And so it's really busy all of a sudden. And, I'm hearing that from all of my clients as well, that this is a really fast return to not only a return to what we knew, but layer on top of it all of their Zoom life that they have to do as well. And these new ideas around what a work day looks like or what a work life looks like. I'm hearing it's quite expanded and really difficult to navigate right now. And I'm definitely feeling that, right? Because I'm like, people want to do Zoom and now people actually want me to come to see them again. But so my work days are very long because I'm putting people in all over the place. So it's crazy right now. I don't know about how about for you?
I think the big thing that I've experienced, I got last week. It was I got back from California. It's the first time I had traveled, been on a plane in a year, and I've always loved, like you. I've always loved to travel. I really enjoyed it, but I did not realize how liberating it was. And now it was a little crazy because I mean Newark Airport was jam packed. The flight that I was on, a big plane, jam packed. I mean all of that. But when I got on that plane, went to LA, I got to spend about 6 days out there. What the reason why, just as a little backstory, it was my 10-year anniversary of the Biggest Loser finale. 10 years ago, I was on the show, and I went out and met with Dr. Huizenga
Hmm.
because, as you know, you and I are big on the whole thing of understanding and learning about the scale and your body composition, and I'm obsessed with body composition. And I went for what's called my third DEXA scan, which is the bellwether of body composition. And I wanted to kind of know where I was from when I first started on the show, when I went to the finale. And what was really fascinating was Dr. Huizenga was very complimentary. I mean, it was nice to hear from a doctor that he was really pleased with the progress that I had made over the years of maintaining my weight. And as we all can do if we want to, he said, look, I'm not so much interested in you changing your weight at this point in time. But he said, since the last time, you've lost some muscle mass, which happens as we get over 40.
Of course, yeah.
You can lose that. So he said, here's my prescription for you. He said, I want you to continue to drop some percentage of body fat. He said, I want you to drop 15 pounds of body fat, and I
Okay.
want you to gain 15 pounds of muscle. So I will, yeah, as you and I are doing our quarterly check-ins, I'm going to keep everybody up to date with what I'm learning, because it's not so much about what I'm doing or what you're doing. A lot of times it's like you and I kind of use ourselves and our families as kind of guinea pigs, and just kind of like, here's some
100%.
what we're doing. And so
Yeah.
I look forward to being able to check back in with everybody and letting everyone know kind of what's going on. But also, which at the end I'll talk about a little bit. I had a long podcast with Dr. Huizenga, learned some fascinating things that he's been doing in the past 10 years. I also got to do a podcast with Gary Deckman, who was the very first Biggest Loser season one to ever step on a Biggest Loser scale. We were out on the ranch, and so Gary and I talked about that. And the last thing is I did this short little cool video about a bathroom scale, which was on the old site of the ranch where the gym was. The gym is no longer there. It was a set, it was taken down. So, some stuff that I think what it is that um, I think it feels good to go out and do things that are new. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's kind of good to go back and reflect on things that we learned in the past and things that we want to be able to do again. So I don't know. I'm kind of going, I'm literally going forward and backwards, back and forth. And maybe it's kind of like what you're saying with people you're talking to. We're all kind of in this, like, just like little kids in a candy shop, kind of rediscovering what does life look like.
Yeah, what does it look like? And I think, I'm having it's so funny because I do, hundreds and hundreds of private calls. I have this stack of papers. I was showing it as
Yeah.
a these are the so I always take notes on my private calls. This is the stack of private calls I've done just this year.
Wow.
These are half-hour private calls for my courses and things like that. So I'm constantly talking to people one to one. And like right before this, I got off a call with a woman. And yeah, that's it. People are really trying to figure out this.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to express to people, like, when you have a lasting weight loss, it's because you never stop engaging with it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a Rubik's cube that keeps getting scrambled. This is
Mm-hmm.
my favorite analogy around it. And this is just yet again another scramble, right? Which is like someone came along, you'd kind of gotten it right. She said, "Oh my God, I lost all this weight in the beginning of the pandemic," which I heard anecdotally from a lot of people, that right at the front end of the pandemic, they were finally free of commutes. They were finally free of this. They could work out. They could cook some foods. They were terrified of the disease itself, and heard around that weight gain and people with higher weight body mass index were getting sicker and dying. So people were very, very motivated. And she said now she feels totally unmotivated, and she feels like they're really throwing her off constantly. And she's just one of hundreds, right? Hundreds of people that I'm talking to. And that's what I'm hearing. So I think it's really interesting to really set the stage around this conversation around how can people create some normalcy for themselves, and how can they begin to have success. Riding weight loss long term sometimes feels like you're riding a bucking bronco, and
Yeah.
other times it's like a pleasure cruise, right? But I think
Yep.
people feel like it's a bucking bronco right now because all of a sudden they're out again and they're busy and they're stressed in ways that they weren't stressed before, different stresses. But now it's back to being in an office and commuting and traveling and all of those things. So it
I think
is,
that
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think I think the big thing too that I've noticed, which has been really, I think, really helpful. I can't tell you how many conversations I have with people that are starting to feel like it's okay to not feel okay, that are having mental challenges and
Yeah,
issues. It's interesting because a good friend of mine, Heidi Han, who has a PhD in stress management, and she's done all kinds of work around it. She said something I'd never heard before. She said, when we go through something that's traumatic like this, there people start to band together. There's a sense of community, and then what happens is people kind of feel like, okay, well, things are going to be fine now. We're going to go back to normal. And she said, actually, what happens is after it, there's still a letdown. There's a thing like in your mind, you think I should be okay now. Everything's okay. And she said,
yeah,
what science has shown is that that's not the case. There's still this like dip that happens. So what I try to do, like what you and I are doing, we've always done, you got to stay in the conversation with people that you can trust, family members, friends. If you got somebody that's a negative Nancy, or doubtful, Dan, you don't want to get into that conversation because it's not going to probably work. But you do, like what we're doing. You and I will check in with each other,
yeah.
and and I find that of all the things that we can do, what we eat is important. But as you know, what's eating us, if you don't get to that and share that and be open and vulnerable, the food thing is going to keep coming up, and it's going to be a way for us to kind of medicate and go into our head. So I think that makes a big difference in conversations like we're doing today too.
I totally agree. And I think that was another piece of identifying, there are folks that make us feel really good and really safe, and we can really be ourselves. And then there are folks in our lives who really trigger us. And
Yeah.
maybe there are people that we can't get away from because they're family members, or maybe they're friends that you've chosen along the way and you feel obligated to, but every time you're around them, they don't particularly make you feel great. And then you end up overeating because you've kind of been triggered by that relationship. And I
Yeah.
think that really examining how you feel around people, and how they tend to trigger you is going to be really important, and honoring yourself and how you feel, and not talking yourself out of that. is a big piece of this as well, because suddenly we're around people again, and you may be noticing that there are people that cause stress and that triggers you.
Yeah. I think the other part that in the conversations I've had with people recently, this is kind of as an opportunity. It's a sweet spot for if we look at what's happening with COVID and people kind of coming out of it. Now, if you live in California, you live in Florida, it's different because the weather's better than when we're in the Northeast. But when you consider we have June, July, August, September, we have a whole big quarter of the year to be able. I mean, you got more light in the day, you can get out more, you can eat some fresher foods. I think I really want people to think about if there was ever a time to really reset and get a strong floor and a foundation, this is the time of year to do it. And I think what's good in a way, since we still, not everybody's having to go back to work, they still have some wiggle room of time that they maybe didn't have in the past. I've just been saying to everybody, like, look, take every advantage. And that's why part of the reason why I wanted to kind of talk from the pool today. I said to my wife yesterday, she was working yesterday, unfortunately, but fortunately too. And I said, look, I'm calling you from the pool. My mindset is I want to have where we live, our location is our vacation. Like literally, I'm mandating that I feel like I'm in Florida. I feel like I'm in California. And I know it's just a nice day, but you can actually have more of a vacation mentality. And you and I've talked about this before, and I know you've done it when you guys have been on vacation. Vacation doesn't mean you just let it rip. It actually becomes you can really savor and enjoy stuff, slow down. And I think if people started looking at this summer as a vacation mentality, serving you versus slaying you, I think it's a good opportunity.
I totally agree. And also, it's such an opportunity, especially if you've been gone from work and now you're going back in. I always tell people habits can be set, and they're best set when there's something new occurring. And you may be going back to an old office, but you are a new person at this point. And how you do it, I would say this is the moment to set new habits.
Yeah.
Right? If you used to take a train that just got you there on time and you were running late all the time, so you were stressed and you didn't make breakfast, this is your moment to say, I'm not going to do it like I used to do it. I'm going to take the one earlier train. I'm going to pack my lunch right from day one back in the office, and I'm going to set that as habit. Because the brain, a few times in, is going to click back and go say, hey, this is what we do now. And we bring our lunch and we go outside for lunch and we take a walk at lunch. I think now is that time to say, I refuse to go back to what it was. And I'm going to find a way to build healthier habits into the life that I had as it begins to try to pull me back, right? Because I think that's it, is you have this danger right now of just going back to exactly how you were and exactly how everything looked and getting dragged into it. And now you've got this opportunity to say, no, I'm not doing it.
It's funny you say that because I've talked about this in past conversations. My biggest transformation on Biggest Loser was that literally the last call I had to my wife, I said, Kim, I need to approach this as a blank slate. I have gained and lost 100 pounds a dozen times in my life. And if I go in with the same J and the same thinking and I lose weight, that person is going to come back again. And so I literally went there with a blank slate. And it's interesting because some people said to me, well, like, why are you going back to Biggest Loser 10 years later? That's in your past. I said, here's why. I wanted to go see Dr. Huizenga. I wanted to check in, and I wanted to check in with myself because what I told him is, look, I will be 64 this July. And 10 years from now, God willing, I'll be 74. So if I am going to take that same blank slate approach, what is the life that I want to create 10 years into the future? So I love what you said, Liz, because some people say, I just want to go back to normal. I would suggest whatever we had was what we had. It was great, whatever. But I love your idea of like setting new habits, new boundaries, actually going on to where you work and saying, like, I've learned some things, I've changed some things. I want to look at my life and how I'm working here differently. So this is truly, I think it's one of the few times in our life we can have a conversation we probably could have never had before.
Yes, and everyone is open to it, right? Well, hey, I don't want to go back to the office 3 days a week. I want to go back, right? And I'm going to keep working from home 2 days a week, and I'm going to walk my kids to school, and I'm going to create the life that I want because that's available to us in a new way. And you and I are we're like Smurfs, right? Like we see the positive in so many things.
That's true.
Like, and I think that's why we get along, is because I really see this as a positive opportunity to grab a hold of what you want and to take it.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, if weight loss has been something that you want to master, it's the understanding that it is an ever evolving picture. I mean, look at you 10 years later. Now
Yeah.
you're going to have to work on some fat loss and some muscle gain so that you're
Yeah.
the healthiest you. And it has nothing to do with you being 15 pounds lighter. It has
Right.
everything to do with you living the life that you want and it being a totally different approach. I mean, I would say my weight maintenance during this pandemic has been the hardest weight maintenance of my entire now over 10 years of maintaining the 65-pound weight loss. And that's because my lifestyle changed so dramatically from 20 to 30,000 steps a day in New York City,
Yeah.
grabbing a salad in between meetings, having no time for snacks, not serving several meals a day to my children, not sitting in this chair for sometimes 9 hours a day, right? Being on Zoom calls. It was such a hard Rubik's Cube shift for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so many insights and so much work. But I value that work. It's an active process, guys.
Yeah.
For Jay and I, we don't get to pop bonbons in this thing and say like, no, I've got my formula all worked out. I know what I have to do. No, my gym's closed. My kickboxing shut down. I had to figure out workouts, figure out steps, figure out eating. I had to eat way less all of a sudden because even eating what I was eating, I was gaining weight slowly because I was sitting all day, right? So
Yeah.
those pieces and looking at your lifestyle and now building the lifestyle that you want. Right.
The other thing that when you mentioned the thing about 20 to 30,000 steps, one of the things I definitely experienced when I was living in Summit and doing some wellness navigation there, more full time than I've been doing recently, I got to see there were some people that would be in the gym. This is not a criticism, but they would be there literally 2, 3, 4 hours working like it was like their job in their mind. Okay. And I think they got a lot from it. But what happened was pandemic comes along, Y shuts down, and all of a sudden these people that are really what you would see as being fit had put on, you could tell they had put on a lot of weight. And so this isn't judgment. This is just a great example because I know you do this with people all the time at Target 100. If your food is 80 to 90% being paid attention to in your hydration, that's still the formula. The movement and exercise is important. It's very important. But if it's the hammer for you to keep your weight down and all of a sudden somebody takes your hammer away, it's not going to get pretty. So I think this is a great opportunity to go back to the principles and the pillars that I know that you're sharing with people. Those are the things, the food part of it, and your thinking behind that is critical. Not to knock exercise movement, but the food thing is so vital and so important.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it, right? When I show people my wheel, like it's this famous worksheet, it's got all 6 pillars in a circle, and all 6 pillars are equal size, right? Because if you're leaning on exercise to clean up all your food choices, like it's never a winning formula. At some point, you're going to get injured, right? You're going to have a pandemic hit. You're going to whatever it is, and so being out of balance in any place, right? That's why stress has its own pillar. And stress, I hear more about stress being the reason people eat than anything else.
Yep, I would agree.
Not
Big time.
Out of hunger, right? Not out of hunger. No, not out. It's stress, and people really have learned that the food, and they're smart. The food will release the serotonin, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a beautiful time to be kind of thinking through how do I want to see myself. That positive visualization around. Okay, we're in flux right now, but where do I visualize myself landing at the end of all of this? What does it look like? And really getting crystal clear on that visualization around your life in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. Where are you headed? I think that's a big piece of all of this.
The one other one that I wanted to mention too was besides seeing Dr. Huizenga, just to kind of get an understanding where I was body composition wise, and just kind of doing a mental check-in.
Where were you in comparison to 10 years ago?
Oh, I'm still, well, that was the whole thing. That was, what was great was he was like, he described, and when people hear the podcast, they'll get to understand it. I did not understand to the depth of which I almost didn't get on the show. Here's the thing. You're on a reality TV show. They tell you whatever they tell you, and you don't always know, quite frankly, if it's all
Sure.
true.
Yeah.
He was very, very reluctant to have me be there because I had this near fatal heart arrhythmia and a stress test. He'd never seen it before of somebody. I thought, and he sent me for additional tests at Cedar Sinai, and I thought what he was doing was trying to check out, my sleep apnea, how it was affecting my heart. Basically, what it was is he was not sure whether or not I had heart disease, and his thesis was I had sleep apnea, and which they did a test. I had severe sleep apnea, so he knew that was a cause. And the reason why I'm sharing this part of the story is because I won't go into all the details, but the point was he found that it wasn't heart disease, but it was sleep apnea. And he gave me the chance to get on the show because he knew that if I left it up to myself because of who I was being before, I probably would go home and do nothing. So he literally kept me there, put me on a heart monitor for like 42 days and checked out what I was doing. What I've learned out of this, and the reason why this is important, I want to share this with people. I was 100% compliant on the show wearing my CPAP. It helped me lose 181 pounds. It helped change my metabolism. Whether people know it or not, sleep and rest and restoration makes a big difference. Okay? Big time. You know that, Liz, without a doubt. But what happened? I got cocky after the show. I lost the weight. I didn't need the thing in my mind anymore. I'd even had a sleep test 5 years later, and it showed it was even worse because as you get older, you don't have the same pliability in your esophagus. Before I went out to LA, I went and got another sleep test, and I had known that I've been in this zone for a long time. No matter what it seemed like, how I exercised, how I ate, I kind of plateaued, which is fine. But I said, you know what? Probably, since I'm not wearing my CPAP, probably it's screwing with my metabolism. I went and had a CPAP test, and I went to pulmonologist here in Summit. I got a new machine, and I'm so in love with this thing because not only is it the new machine, because you should get one every 5 years, but it's got an app that literally, it's like exercise. I'm now sleeping and paying attention to what I'm doing. Instead of me waking up at 3 a.m, which I would do in the past, I'm like, okay, just rest, just lay there. And so my scores are better, and I'm literally learning how to train my brain and body to be more restorative. And ever since I did this, it's only been 7 days, literally every single day, the scale has been dropping. We're not talking big because I'm not doing anything crazy, but literally I'm allowing my body metabolically to do this. So what I would say to people, doctors, all that stuff, sleep tests, anything, what people don't really realize with the reality show is that one of the best benefits was getting extensive medical information because you could do all kinds of things. But I got to tell you what, if you have sleep apnea and you're doing something with it, you're working against yourself. So I know that's a lot to share, but it's important.
I'm so happy that you're talking about sleep. I mean, because again, like those are those two pillars that I've got, the stress and the sleep. And everyone's always like, yeah. Literally, like that's their yeah, Liz, that's great. I'll meditate, whatever, but oh my gosh, when people, and this is my desire to align them with their results, right?
Yeah.
When people start to focus on their sleep and the quality of their sleep, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just losing weight. Like, it's like all the things I was doing were useless without. So people don't understand that is the time at which your body detoxes. That is the time. Like I always say, like you don't need a juice cleanse. You don't have to do a detox.
Right.
None of the stuff that gets marketed to you is any help. What you need to do is focus on good bedtime routines, good wake up routines, good sleep hygiene, the room, the sheets, the darkness, the sound, right? All of it has to be primary, and you have to protect it with your life because it is, I mean, people just, especially because of the pandemic, I think sleep quality has gone out the window.
Oh, yeah.
We're just on screens watching Netflix, staying up late, stressed over the news, drinking more alcohol. I mean, like alcohol and food consumption went up by like 30 to 50% in the last year for most people.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So it's really a time to return. It'll be very interesting to watch this, right? How do people come out of this? I mean, we have people talking about it being the roaring 20s. And I could definitely say from the last weekend in my town, I went out to dinner. There was a live band. There were people everywhere. The restaurant was so packed they couldn't see people. They were slammed. I was like, whoa, wow. Okay, maybe we are going into the roaring 20s, and all of this overeating and over drinking is going to extend into this. Or are we going to say, like, holy cow, in my other life, right, in most of the work that I do around corporate wellness and things like that, I see a real shift towards people wanting to get well. So there's like a real dichotomy going on right now of like how to turn this ship, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference is that, there are a few times in our lives that there are major cultural things that cause, I mean, 9/11 was a whole different set of that. But I think the reason why, if a person really pays attention to it, it didn't matter whether you got COVID or not. This was the first time, at least here, and I think around the world, that everyone realized, we all know at some point in time we're not going to be here forever. But I think this was the first time that everybody realized it, quite frankly, it was better if you were in better shape than not. But even people that were in good shape had things that had gone wrong, and it didn't work out for them. But I think now there is, and I know the people you're talking to, the people I'm talking to, I think there's more of an opening for that conversation to see that, it's not just about losing weight and maintaining the weight, which is important because it's going to make a big difference. But it is literally slowing it, like you said, the stressors, all of those things, because as you know, that just becomes a catalyst for the wheels falling off if you're not living your life less stressful than it was before. So I think it makes a big difference.
Well, and I think it's important to also recognize like that our environment shift, right? I talk a lot
Mm.
about environmental shifts, and I
Hmm.
think the collapse of the environmental piece, I want people to recognize how much they lost, right?
Mm.
So, like, I was always already talking about how much we don't move, or how much we overeat, or how bad, it is to go to Marshalls or Home Goods and get to the checkout and be confronted with a maze of foods that you then have to be triggered and try to survive. It's like a gauntlet, right? Like, you're like,
Yeah.
how do I get out of this store without eating? So the environment that we're in now, I'm trying to educate people of like, right there, you are around food. If you are working from home, you used to be around food from 12 to 15 hours a day. Now you're
Mm.
around food like 15 to 18 hours a day. So there's food right within your reach. And it's not like when you go to a restaurant and you say, oh, I'm just going to order this X, Y, or Z, and I'm going to eat that and then go back to my office. You go downstairs and there's a whole fridge and a whole pantry of nonstop, right, things. On top of it, we are definitely not moving, right? We're sitting a lot more, but also we're being triggered more because most people are watching a lot more Netflix
Oh
and
yeah.
Hulu and all of that, and trying to educate people around the fact that Netflix and Hulu and those guys, they realized long ago that we don't watch commercials. So
Right.
they started embedding products into the shows to trigger us to eat during the show. So
Hmm.
they have these advertisers spend millions of dollars to get us to be triggered during the shows. And they've even worked out that if they can put that little thing in the corner of the box where you will just watch another show with it, they've got it. They know if you watch the credits, you're like 40% less likely to watch another show. But if they put that
Yeah.
down there and you press the button and you can go right to the next one, they can get you to binge and sit there longer, right? So
Yeah.
I just like people to know what's being done to them, right?
Hmm.
So get up and watch those shows on your treadmill or walk in place, understand, that you're being triggered, that they're purchasing airtime, and they are embedding and forcing the actual leads to interact with food products and drinks and things like that in an actual way that will trigger you to buy that product. So, like, just understand what's happening to you. We are triggered when we see food, smell food, or talk about food. I mean, the stress that we are under. My kids are still home from school. I have one who's
Mm.
not even going to go back till next September. So it's
Wow.
like, all of it. I just want people to be aware that they are being triggered. There are lots of external sources And the more that they can kind of understand it, because I was watching a show last night and I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. Oh my gosh. I think it's a game. For me, it's a game. I notice now how many times they're, putting the product on the table, the kitchen table, or how many times they're having the person drink that drink during the episode. And if you start playing around with it, you'll understand this is a big, big money maker for people.
So, Liz, I know, because obviously I know what you're up to. I follow you. I participate in many things, so I know what's going on in the Liz world. Um, to that point, you and I, we love having our chats and our conversations. And back to your thing about moving and doing things. So, what are you up to right now? What I know you got a bunch of different challenges going on. You got things coming up. So
Yeah.
for people to know, like, what are you up to? We know they can go to your website, which we'll make sure that that's here. But like, what's going on? What are you seeing? What's cooking in your challenge world? What do you want to share with people?
Yeah, so we have a lot coming up just because it is the summer and people are trying to figure this all out. My most popular challenge ever was called Get the Sugar Out Challenge. And we did that in January, and it was so popular and people had so much success because, again, another piece that manufacturers and companies are putting sugar in lots and lots of places because sugar is an addictive substance. And even if they put it in your sauces or your marinades or your dressings, you will not be able to stop eating it. So you're finding it. I just did a couple of videos even about macaroni and cheese having like 9 grams of sugar per serving, right? Like these things that are processed and packaged are filled with sugar. So we have the Get the Sugar Out Challenge going again. We're going to kick it off next Monday, June 14th. So you can find out about it at lizjosephsberg.com under classes and events. It's a 21-day challenge where we educate you. We kick it off with a live webinar. We educate you around where to find the hidden sugars, what it's doing to you physiologically. And then we work together for 21 days to just really stay below the recommended 25 grams of sugar in a day. So really pushing that. We're doing it again for summer because summer, wow, sugar is like, I'm noticing it like I had friends over and they're bringing food and they're bringing desserts and then we're out and sugar's just everywhere in the summer. And even thinking about the sugar, even cutting back on your fruit intake just a little bit because some of the summer fruits are so high in sugar, they will trigger sugar cravings and have you going crazy just the same. So we're doing that. And then I have a summer survival mini course that we're doing, which is a 5-week, 5 live webinars with me and my coaches doing, 5 live webinars that are going to help you survive vacations and long summer days and barbecues and all the issues that summer brings on: heat, exercising in the summer, how to shift those exercise routines, and just how to navigate summer. I don't know about you. I find summer is the hardest weight loss month for me.
But it's funny. For me, actually, it's not. But I had no idea. A lot of friends of mine and other people that I would talk to, summer is actually, they say, the toughest time. For me, wintertime is more, I go in like a bear hibernation, coziness happen. But a lot of people that I know, like when you're talking about drinking, like they go rogue. They're like, look, I got the cocktails that I'm drinking. I'm having a wingding of a time. And then that's like it's a catalyst for like, I'm eating a gigantic cheeseburger with bacon on, like, so there are a lot of people that I always thought summer would be like this great fresh vegetable, but for some people it is not. So everybody has their trigger, as you would call it, the trigger. They got a trigger. You need to be real with whatever your particular time of year is. It's your trigger.
Yeah, well, and don't you think that's my favorite part about helping people privately and in these groups where they're working together is like for them to realize who they are versus who, like you and I, look, we are completely opposite. I struggle, you love summer, right? I think it's so important for people to honor themselves and to figure out what works for them. That's what Target 100 is all about. Like, it is not, hey, here's a program and you run and follow it and you do it, and it's just, that's what I learned is like people don't succeed that way because they're just not living their authentic life, right? Their authentic life is to find out, hey, I like X, Y, and Z breakfast, and I like, this, and here are where my struggles are, and let me focus on that. I happen to personally love exercise, right? Like I
Hmm.
love it. I don't know what I would do without it. I'm growing my business in September. We have a massive big launch coming, which is so exciting, which we'll hear more about as we go down the road. But it's, if I didn't have my exercise 6 to 7 days a week, I'm exercising, not because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, but because it manages my stress in a way that I find to be so impactful, right?
Yeah.
Whereas other people hate exercise, and getting them to do it 1 or 2 times a week is like torture, right? So
Yeah.
we know who we are and leverage our strengths, I think. And that's a big piece of what's helped me keep this weight off is I'm not living somebody else's program. I wrote my own.
Yeah. Now the self-discovery is the secret sauce. It is the part that, sometimes I know with Biggest Loser, one of the things I love with Jillian is she would say, "Don't surrender your power to anyone or anything." And
Mhm.
really, the message is that for somebody to be successful with Target 100, is you're giving them their prescription. They choose it. They figure it out. It's not the Liz way or no way. It's like, no, it's what is your way? You've experienced this. You can help people with that, but they have to choose. They have to lift the weight and make the choices. But you've given them the tools that they need, so that which is great.
Yeah, and that's it. I'm sure you feel the same way after helping as many people lose weight as you have. You
Yeah.
start to see that there are some universal struggles,
Yep.
right? There are, you can almost like say like there are buckets of
Hmm.
things that are universal, but of all of the people I've ever helped, not a single one of them is the same as the person standing next to them. Because even though they may have a universal struggle, their history is different, right?
Yeah.
Where they started, their food history. Again, thinking through. We had this amazing meeting this weekend. I'm just finishing up one of my beginners courses, and the end couple of weeks are very deep on the emotional eating piece
Mm.
and figuring out what's triggering you in that space. And I think like just letting people understand that emotional eating is very real,
Hmm.
and we do have these reactions to different experiences, and that they have become a part of our history. And in this meeting, we looked back for a moment, just reflected on how food was presented to us in our family life as children. And,
Hmm.
I was talking about how, in my house, my mom had a lot of rules around like not being able to open things that weren't open. And like, she didn't want us eating between meals. So it felt very controlled, right? Like she was
Hmm.
controlling me for my childhood. So it made food very like this thing that I wanted all the time, and I would sneak it. I would like
Hmm.
ride my bike and go get it. And it was like this thing that I was hiding. And I realized, and I'm not blaming my mom. She was just trying to be healthy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not placing blame there. I'm just saying that, but with that, I remember now, even like we had this cookie jar, and I would try to sneak down there and get the lid off without her hearing the lid. Like my whole body can remember that it was so off limits that it became this magical thing for me. And I think it really fed into me kind of having this relationship with food that was really unhealthy,
Yeah.
and working myself through that. And as I say, not with blame, but with like, hey, take a look back and see, where did you begin to think about food, and
Hmm.
what did that set you up for in a way? What was your relationship with food, and what is it now?
Yeah, my favorite. We didn't have cookie jars, but what I do is
Mhm.
I go downstairs and I get out the Toll House cookie chips, and I would make I mean, look, people are like, you're not supposed to eat with the eggs. I didn't care. I make the raw cookie dough. I take the cookie dough up to my bedroom, and then I would eat it, and then I would forget and leave the bowl under my bed, and my mother would go upstairs and make the bed or something. Then I get found out. I was like, oh my god. So then you get shamed and like you're eating cookies, and they're like, oh. So yeah, you're right. I mean, that everybody's got some story about whatever their antics are going to cookies. And, oh,
Mhm. Yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I like to really have people reflect back on where did they pick up some of their ideas around food, right? And a lot of these diets have given them really skewed ideas around food as well, about things being good or bad,
Right.
being in or out or on or off. I think that's why people are fascinated by your feed and my feed, because we're showing I eat amazing food. Like
Oh yeah, hey, you and I, we are not, don't be looking for air and nothing going on. I mean, you and I absolutely and I think that's really the issue. The issue is getting to a place where you can literally have the cake and eat it too and not shame yourself and hate yourself. And but it does require, it's like an exercise. It requires time and energy and paying attention, and it doesn't happen overnight. But yeah, it we are, and many people are living proof that if you keep in the conversation and you're honest with yourself, there comes a shift where I can tell you, Liz, when I weighed 435 pounds, there was nothing that I couldn't eat, and I did, and I was in secret with. I don't know. I cannot eat that much anymore. I'm not trying to not do it, but it's like
Mm.
literally, it's like lifting a weight that if I can't lift that weight, and it doesn't. I'm not complaining,
No,
but it's not there.
not
It's just
there,
not
right?
there.
Right.
You
And
know.
that speaks to the physiology of being
Right.
able to eat, right? And I've watched it. I've helped people lose over 100 pounds at a time, and their palate changes,
It does.
their brain changes
It does.
over time. And it is not sexy and it is not magic. And it is one foot in front of the other, baby step at a time. That's why I think you and I are speaking the same language all the time. Is like what is being fed to them is so many lies, right? That before
Right.
and after picture on the wall of a diet center of like this
Mm-hmm.
fat lady, and this lady then's like, hey, I just like lost all this weight and I feel amazing. It's all such a lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yeah.
a self-discovery. This is a process of, and that is so powerful when you say, when I weighed this, what 400 and
435 and climbing
okay, I
and
want to make
climbing.
sure I got the number right, because it's like
Yeah.
435, and you could eat and were eating
Oh yeah.
everything that you wanted, right? But you were doing it though in a shame guilt cycle. So you weren't enjoying the food. You were
Nope.
hiding. I mean, because I've been you, right? Like
Yep.
I was eating whatever I wanted, but I was hiding it, sneaking it, driving around to get it. No one knew what I was doing. And I didn't taste the food. I didn't
Nope.
enjoy the food. And
Nope.
now I'm eating, you know, such beautiful food. I'm thinking about this. We just had friends over for a barbecue the other night, and I think we should share some of our summer food.
Mm-hmm.
We made these goat cheese stuffed burgers on
Mm.
amazing potato bread rolls. We roasted
Mm-hmm.
potatoes, like beautiful little summer potatoes roasted with fresh herbs. And I made
Nice.
a beautiful salad. And I'm like still dreaming about this meal. Like, I'm like, it was so delicious, right?
Yeah.
And I was present for every bite of that. And
Mm-hmm.
today, like I'm locked in this box. I am up in this little prison. Like I'm gonna like probably have a protein shake and make a salad for dinner, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But I enjoy my food. When
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and not like I used to in guilt and shame and fear and deprivation mentality.
Yep.
Hope
Definitely.
for people to get that from this is, you know, that relationship to food is so big. What is it? How are you eating that food? With pride and with enjoyment and with, I always say I'm making love to it. Like that's how
Yeah.
into it I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm with
Makes a
it.
big difference.
Yeah. And I used to eat it like this, like
Yeah.
not even in presence. So
Definitely.
uh,
No, it makes a big difference.
I'm just
So.
looking at some of our Facebooks here. Yeah. The body image we adopted or we're trained to adopt, right, is a big
Mhm.
one too. I mean, these are huge pieces of this identity that we've created over time. And that's what we're breaking down is the identity that we had around ourselves.
Definitely. So I know you've got a big thing, and you'll share more with everybody as we go forward in September. We don't have a big thing, but Gloria and I have been working behind the scenes where, with a lot of the stuff we've been doing in the past year with COVID, kind of like two little elves whittling together some of the things that we work with. And I think one of my biggest passions and probably one of the biggest game changing things that I brought from Biggest Loser has been the whole idea of body composition,
Yes.
what I call going beyond the scale. And most of my work is really centered around the North Star of people really learning how to go beyond the scale. And that's why you and I have that same type of a way where we dance back and forth, very different things, but very similar things. And so this September, we will be bringing out a Going Beyond the Scale free webinar where I've had a lot of people, they go like, this is all well and good, but I loved it. Like, what are some things that I could do?
Yeah.
So I'm putting together a free webinar so that people can start to understand that, because literally all of my corporate clients have been busy, and where we would take the scale and go in and working with them and whatever. So what we did is, where I'm here in the building that I'm in right now, I brought down my Embody. I put it down in the lobby. I just got back from, I had another, there were about 10 people this morning that I did their body composition. We did stuff over the weekend. And what's been so fascinating is when people really, as you know firsthand, Liz, when people start to understand themselves and the composition and how their body, because you can't, I can't, a doctor can't, a nutrition can't, everybody's body metabolically has a different kind of a code, that it kind of how it works and what figures it, and it doesn't happen by one day or 1 week. You have to stick with it, so that over time you go like, oh, I'm learning this. And then seasonally, as you know, seasonally our bodies change. So I think that that's an area I'm excited about, that by the time September comes around, we're going to be able to have this free webinar out there, so people can start to understand their body composition. So if we're still in the very early stages, but if they go to goingbeyondthescale.com, they'll start to see that, and the things I told you guys about. I got my Huizinga interview. Gloria's got to finish the editing on it. The Huizinga interview and some of the other ones from when I was in LA. I think they'll get some value out of that as well. So I want to share that too.
Wait. I literally can't wait just to listen in on that. I'm so excited about it. Do you have the full Embody, or do you have the at-home Embody?
I have the 270. The 270 is the one that we use at the Y, is the 570.
Yes,
it's the big boy. Okay. Yep. And the 270 is the one that I have for corporate, so that I can literally take that in and out of New York. I can take it on a plane. But it is the same way. The technology is at the same level of the 570. But it's just, it's not as heavy. I mean, the 270 is heavy enough, but yeah, it definitely is a game changer.
Don't they have an at-home scale now?
They do. They have an HN20.
Yeah.
They do have one. I think it's about $400 retail. So, but it's literally same thing, state of the art. It's the type of thing. Whoop, the sun's coming out. I'm getting. Yeah, no, it's definitely a high-end medical device. And I'm now sneaking into a little corner here to try to stay out of the sun. You do what you got to do, Liz. You just do what you got to do.
That's what you do. We're live.
We're live. But yeah, they do have a smaller one as well. But more on that down the road. So I think, Liz, the sun's giving me a clue that I need to get my lobster head out of this and move forward.
Don't get burned out there.
Okay, until you and I can get together again. How does that sound to you?
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you have anything in closing any other word of wisdom you want to share with anybody?
No, I love just this idea, guys, of body composition. I like that we're ending there. It's like so not about the one number on the scale. And the more we can teach you that, the more we can open your eyes to that. I want you guys watching out for Jay's webinar. We periodically do a challenge called Getting Over Your Fear of the Scale. And we have people buy body composition scales, even though and the ones you can get on the market, they're not particularly accurate, but they're giving you a range.
Yeah, definitely.
Consider body composition, guys. It is so much more impactful than just your weight.
It definitely is.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's a beautiful day, Jay. I'm jealous of your pool over there.
Well, you never know, Liz. You and I might be doing some swimming exercise out here down the road.
I love it. I'm coming over.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
Thanks again,
Bye,
Liz.
guys.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye, Lynn. I see Lynn in.